So, I think the next best thing to do will be to have a demo game to show you the ropes as we're playing, you know? Give you an example. We're going to use the tutorial deck, the starter deck, sorry, with both players. Obviously, I'm just going to be playing against myself so I can slowly explain all the moves as they're going on. I thought we might do 2 games. We'll do one with the starter decks, which isn't super interesting. The deck itself isn't super interesting, I mean. But it's got a bunch of general use cards that don't require keywords too much or require any intense interactions. And then I'll do 2 of my proper decks against each other, different decks as well, so you can actually maybe see some stuff. I don't know if I'll try and pick fast decks for the second game because some of my decks are quite slow, and as a tutorial thing, I don't want to drag it on forever. These decks tend to be quite fast, so Black Rose, there's no update you need to add to the YCG because if you've downloaded the program, you have the most up-to-date version of it. If I remember rightly, Black Rose, don't you not have WinRAR installed on your computer? Was that you? I should remember someone saying they didn't have WinRAR. I will tell you now, I upload everything with WinRAR, so if you don't have it, get it. What are you doing? I think it even says that on the wiki. Just get WinRAR. Right, so start of every game, both players, click the add to prize button 5 times, and then draw 5 times. So there's a hand, there's 5 in the prizes. I keep remembering to swap character here. So we added the buttons here for the most widely used things, which includes these buttons for adding counters. I don't think I've ever used them. I think I just always right click. But or basically the most useful tools you're going to be using are all here. I will point out, because I know that Cloudy has done this before, and I don't know what happens, something in the game screws up. If an effect says reveal cards from the top of your deck and asks you to reveal multiple, never right-click your deck and reveal X number. Okay? Or I don't even know how he does it. Because it crashes every time, and has nothing to do with my card game. I think it's a Lackey thing, which was last updated in 2014 and is never going to get another update. So please just use this button. I created this button specifically to stop that because there's no solution to it otherwise. Use the other version of the download link. What do you mean the other version of the download link? There's only one download link. What are you talking about? They all link to the same place? You didn't just install the update and not the actual program, right? Because the update was basically only there for me, Cloudy, and Lee, who had the program before. You can ignore the update files otherwise. Right, so let's start a game, shall we? We tend to roll a d20 to see who's going first. I'll check the first one on the Dropbox does sound right. It does sound like you're clicking on the right thing. Well, I don't understand what's going wrong with you. Let me double check. No, the first one is the update files. The second one, the one that just says YCG version 1.4, that's what you want. Not the 1.4.0 update files. Ignore that. You just want the one that says version 1.4, okay? It's the back door to the I flip the table move, which is the tabletop. Yeah, true. Good point, Reese. Good point. Right, so, yeah, we normally roll a d20. Whoever rolls highest gets to choose which player goes first. Just because, that makes life easy. We'll just make me go first here because it doesn't really matter. It's using the same deck with the same person. So, this will be a perfect example to explain a move that I think I'm the only person who's ever used in the same way as basic attacks are. So, you know how to get a prize card, you have to remove all your opponent's front row characters, correct? So you might be thinking, why don't I just end my turn without a front row? Right? You can't do that. So if you end your turn and you don't have a front row character, you trigger something called backup. I was trying to remember what it was called. I was like, shit, I forgot the name. It's called backup. So basically, what backup is if you end your turn and there's no characters in your front row, you have to reveal the top card of your deck, and then if it's a character that you can play, note that if you have a character that you can't play, this doesn't count. So Hotsuma here is a character I can play. It will always play in the front center zone, and then your turn ends instantly. You can't do anything with that character because you have to end your turn with a character in your front row. This only applies if you have no characters in your front row. So it does apply if you have back row characters and items. You have nothing there, you still have to back up. So there might be some situations where you don't have a card to play in your front row and you have to back up. Or it might be turn 1 and you're thinking, I don't want to chuck 3 cards out on my first turn. which is normally why I back up and normally why I'm the only person to use it, because I always go first because I suck at rolling dice. But it also, like, turn 1, it means I don't reduce the extra card I got in my hand, right? So there is an advantage to using backup. Yeah, so if you reveal a non-character or a character that you can't play, so for example, one of the Kirby Evolution cards, they just go offline. Yes, yeah, the rest of them, they go offline, they're all sent to the offline pile, which then therefore also makes them become a resource for your opponent. So if you draw, you know, like items or events or arenas or whatever, all offline. So let's swap player and go to our other player's turn. That blue square keeps swapping sides is going to confuse the heck out of me. I'm so never used to sitting on this side of the stage. Okay, that's, yeah. Right, so draw for turn. Let's play out the second turn here. So, looking at our hand, we don't have many good attackers here. Our best attacker is probably Mo. Then again, our opponent only has one character of 8 HP, so it doesn't really matter. We can probably just knock it out with Emmy here. Oh, I should have changed the art of Emmy to the summer one rather than the awkward holding a sensor bar one, shouldn't I? Whoops. So we have an item here. Let's play an item down. So Chug Jug is a very simple item, right? If you control a damaged character, you can send this card offline to send it back to full health and place another counter on it. Some items like this might confuse people, and that they think they can't just play it and they only want to play it when they're using it. But remember, all items you can just play on the field whenever you want, right? So you can just plop it down, even if you don't have a use for it right now. You can plop it down. Maybe you'll scrap it later. Maybe you'll have want a keyword on the field for something like this. Obviously, the actual effect of it you can only use during your own turn. I mean, you could do, but I don't think that would. I think it will default to the old ones anyway. Cloudy, just so you know. I think you have to directly change it. It's just a useful tidbit for items. You can basically play them whenever, keep them on your field. This blue square, by the way, is just on the tutorial map that has all the writing on. There isn't you don't have to play items here. So I've played this here. I did actually say I was going to play all the stuff over here so you could see it. I realize now, because we keep swapping sides, you're not going to be able to see all the items anyway, because when I swap sides, it'll go under chat. Didn't think that through. Kind of forgot that the field changes sides, but it's not super important. I'll try and play items on the side for that player, I guess. So, okay, yeah, we're looking at a character with 8 HP. He hasn't done anything to protect himself, so let's just play a character that can deal with him. Is there anything else we'd really want to do here? So we have the Doctor's Alonzi, which is a very useful effect. There is a space on the chat that still works. You're right. Yeah, we should play them back here, so then you can see them. Good call, Cloudy. This is an effect that does actually allow you to attack with your back row characters, which is very useful. We don't have anything on back row right now. Also, it can allow you to attack with a front row character with but result as a trigger. So you might wonder why you'd want to do that, but you have to remember, as soon as you attack, you can't play any more cards when you have for the rest of the turn. So let's say, for example, I had a card in my hand. I really wanted to play on the front row, but I wanted to get an attack with one of my current ones. I could use that effect, target my front row character. They attack, but it resolves as a trigger. So then the rest of my turn will continue as normal. So I can then send that card offline because it's already been used and replace it with another one. Just a thing you could do. For right now, I don't really think that we need any more of these cards. You know what we will do, actually? We will play Nodoka in the front row. She has an effect called Brains Over Brawn that allows her to swap place with one character on the field that has an attack effect. Emmy here obviously has an attack effect. And then depending on where Nodoka ends up, you get a different effect. So if she ends up in the back row, both cards are healed. But if she ends up in the front row, you get to draw a card. So if we just swap places with these two cards, we get a free draw. Who doesn't like free draws, right? So now we have another character we actually might want to play in the back row. So let's play Violet here in the back row. I guess we can play her in the front row, actually, because at the end of the day, you mostly want to have 3 characters in your front row at all times, because obviously it means your opponent is less likely to get a prize card, right? Since they have to remove your whole front row to, get one. So she has an effect, Force Field. You can use this trigger once per turn. Target character you control until the end of your opponent's next turn. That character cannot receive damage, but this effect ends if this card leaves the field. So we will use Force Field, and we will target Emmy here. So let's write a note on her. Yeah, any note you write in the note section will stay there, by the way. It won't be on whatever card, but it will stay in the note section, so you'll have to delete it each time you want to put a new one on. Just a heads up. Wow, I mean, I did tweet out that I was streaming, but yes, hello. You've missed most of the tutorial. Don't worry, I'll post it to YouTube later. So you will get to see it. I'll make sure I post out the link on Twitter, so you will see it. I'll even at you if you like. Even though you've missed the tutorial part of this video, which, well, I guess you can still learn just from us playing a game. That's fine. So yeah, until the end of the turn, or until the end of your opponent's turn, I should say, Emmy can no longer receive damage unless Violet leaves the field, which is obviously, normally you'd want to play Violet in the back row if you have 3 front row characters, because it means your opponent has to deal with one of your back row characters before being able to deal with all of your front row. So normally your opponent only has to deal with your front row to get a prize, right? But if one of your front row characters is being protected by a back row, they're going to have to remove that one back row card as well to actually be able to remove your front row. Which, obviously, removing 4 cards is a lot more difficult than removing 3. Removing 3 might be as simple as having 3 characters to attack with more attack than their health. All 3 of these characters have 9 health. Not really going to be that difficult to beat 9 health, really. So, in general, you'd want something like this in the back row. But she does have an added effect if you use this trigger and then use the attack next turn. It attacks all characters, so that's nice. I don't actually think I've seen anyone use this card in a while. It might seem like a really strong card. I don't actually think it is. It's kind of good, though. It has its uses. So I think that's probably all we're going to do here. We're going to use FUD as our attack, which deals 8 damage. It can do more damage if you're directly in front of it, which we were before we moved. But it doesn't matter because Hatsumo has 8 health, and it deals 8 damage. So this card is sent offline. It doesn't actually matter which player drags the card offline, but normally you let the person in control of their own cards send their own cards offline. That's just called being polite. So, because my character was knocked out by my opponent's character, I get to draw a card. I have to keep that in mind. And then on this side, because we've just removed all their front row characters, we get to receive one of the prize cards. We don't get to look at them. Prize cards are always face down. And so far in the game, there is no effect that lets you look at prize cards. I think I have 1 card planned that does let you look at a single prize card. But in general, your prize cards are face down for the whole game, and neither player gets to see them. So you just take one at random. Obviously, it's a card from your deck, so it's going to be useful to you. It was good when there were like 30 cards in the game, yeah. So yeah, we just got Scrap Dragon for a prize card. Arguably one of the best cards in the game. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So that ends the turn. We've done our attack. Back over to this side. So you'll notice in the little scores down here, you should be able to see, it keeps track of how many cards are in each player's hand, deck, and prizes. Basically, win conditions, right? Knowing a player's hand size is obviously very useful. The deck size is obviously super useful if you're going for a deck out strategy. It might not seem very reliable as a thing to do, but it is definitely a strategy that works. And then obviously prizes, you want to know how many prizes. Yes, Cloudy, thank you for mentioning that. You cannot attack your own cards. You have to target an opponent's character with an attack. I probably kind of figured that was obvious, but yes, in case it wasn't obvious, you cannot attack your own cards. However, there is a single card that does allow you to attack if there is no target. So the general gist of how attacks work is your opponent has to have a character for you to target for an attack, right? So on the first player's first turn, obviously there is no cards in your opponent's field. It isn't in some games you don't have a battle phase turn 1, like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously there's no battle phase, so technically you can use attack effects on your first turn. But if your opponent doesn't have a character to target, you can't use it because there's nothing to target with it, right? Like in any kind of game in general, if you have an effect that you have to target something with, and there is nothing to target, you can't use it. I feel like, that's self-explanatory. So that is that, yes. So we're back here. We've got Emmy who's force-fielded, and we've got these 2 other 9 HP characters. We're not super in any sort of worry here, which I'm banking on for future. It would be neat. There might be a potential for something like that in the future. So first things first, we'll put our Chug Jug out as well. So both players can have their Chug Jugs on the field. Yeah, I realise you were saying it works putting the item there, but it actually totally doesn't when we're on the other side of the field. It only works if it's over here. How very confusing. But that doesn't matter. So, what would we do in this situation? 3 characters of 9 health. We have to remove Violet before we can attack Emmy. So let's use Scrap Dragon. So Scrap Dragon has a neat effect, which for those of you who are familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, is there any way to steal a prize card? Yes. there is actually an exact card that does that. I will show you that card just because you've asked, because it's one of my favorite cards that no one else has ever used. It's number 95 right here. Literally has a trigger that takes one of your opponent's prize cards. I love this effect. I have used it before. It's not entirely useful, but it could potentially be, because you get one of your opponent's cards and they don't get it. It might be a key card in their deck. You don't know. But yes, that is definitely a thing you can do. Right, so Scrap Dragon, for those of you who are familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, probably knows what Scrap Dragon does anyway. You scrap one of your own cards to scrap one of your opponent's cards. Fairly simple, I think. Has this got the new wording? Yes, it does. Okay, good. That's handy, because this card just recently got updated. Wait, what was the way you were saying? Giving an opponent one of your prizes. Oh, right. Yes, that is the bad way to do that trade-off entirely. Yes, there is not a way to give an opponent your prize card. No. I feel like that's too strong of an effect. There are other ways of receiving prize cards, like that isn't just by knocking out your opponent's round characters. I feel like maybe in the future there'll be a way of receiving a prize card and you don't get the card, but it's just to reduce your number that won't be quite as difficult. Yes, yeah, as Kai said, there are ways to do it. I think actually Akko's effect, the one that I mentioned earlier, where he called it the Akko Exodia deck, the prizes you receive from her effect, you actually don't get to keep those cards. You have to discard them. But you do get to reduce your number of prizes, so... yes, there are definitely many ways to play this game where you don't have to just focus on attacks. I always go back to my Akko deck just because it's probably the only one of them that I've done that successfully worked. Oh, actually, no, not true. My Haruhi deck works as well. I can't remember exactly how you take prizes in that one. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah. I'll show you that card as well, just because that's a fun card. If I can remember what number she is. She's right near here. So she has an effect here that you reveal cards in your hand with the same name. If you reveal 5 cards with the same name, you get to just take a prize card. You know what? Did we mention deck building? I feel like we skipped over deck building. I feel like maybe I was going to play a game first before doing deck building, but I feel like we should have mentioned deck building at some point, right? I guess I'll go back to deck building when we finish this game, just so we don't distract ourselves too much. But that is obviously an important thing. Yes, some of them don't. Some of them don't indeed. The Haruhi doesn't, for example, one I just showed. So, Scrap Dragon, for those of you who obviously know Yu-Gi-Oh, you know what he does. Scrap one of your cards, scrap one of your opponent's cards. So, in this case, you have to scrap a card you control, because remember, you can scrap cards from your hands. This card specifically says a card you control, so obviously you can't. So what we can do here is we can scrap the Chug Jug that we control to scrap one of our opponent's characters. The downside to using that is that only 2 of your characters can attack that turn. However, they're only going to have 2 characters in the front row, so it doesn't really matter too much. So, I think what we'll actually do here is we won't scrap the Chug Jug. We could have some uses for that. So instead, let's play Hanako here. She has some interesting effects. She's probably one of the more widely used cards in this game, I would say. So, her first effect is a passive that allows you to search your deck for a doll card. Fairly simple. Yes, there are many. Oh, yes, of course it has to be yours. Yeah. That's just a ruling of scrapping cards. You can only scrap your own cards, unless a card says otherwise. You can only scrap your own cards. That is a general ruling of how scrapping works. Scrapping is just directly your own cards. It's the same way tributing works in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like, you know how a card can say, "Oh, tribute a card," whatever. And if you give your opponent a plant, you can't then tribute their plant for Lone Fire. You know, that's just how tributing works. Scrap is exactly the same. It has to be your own card, whether it's from your hand or your field, doesn't matter, unless the card states otherwise. Obviously, in the case of Scrap Dragon, it targets your opponent's card and then it scraps it, but like it's directly part of an effect that does that, so it's a bit different. So yeah, Hanako, the first passive, search your effect for a doll card. A passive card that adds a card to your hand. You can already tell why this card's good, right? So the way to search your deck, you right-click deck, reveal to owner. Don't click reveal to all, where your opponent can look at your deck and there's nothing you can do to stop them. All cards, so you can see through your deck, which, again, the first time you use a search effect in the game, a normal strategy might be to look through your card. If you know how your deck's built, bearing in mind I built this deck like almost a year ago, so I don't know how this deck's built. But if you do know how your deck's built, you can look through your cards and work out which cards are prized. Here's a possibility. But yeah, so we're looking for a doll card. I think there is only one Toadette doll in here, which does mean the other one's prized, because this deck consists of 2 of each card. So we can search our deck for this card. To search, reveal it, play it to the field so your opponent can see it. Because if you just add it to your hand, your opponent won't see it. So obviously if you're searching for a card, you have to prove you're searching for the correct card. You play it to the field so they can see it, and then add it to your hand. So we've added the doll card. So let's use our trigger effect now. Chessmaster, once per turn, you can draw a card and reveal it. So to do that, reveal top deck. If the real card's character, you play it in this character zone. I don't know, it says this character is played offline. That's just a ruling in the game now, but old cards, this is card number 11. And if not, you deal 3 damage to a character field. So if you reveal a help card, you just deal some burn damage. And if it's a character, you send this offline, and then bam. It doesn't actually have any ruling for if it's a character you can't play. But basically, because you've drawn the card, it just adds to your hand and nothing happens. Yeah, I probably am not going to be adding any more scrap cards unless Cloudy draws them. Because I'm sure multiple of you will remember the multiple streams it took me to draw that scrap dragon. Yes. So, the reason I was doing that was because if I did reveal an item or event, or a help card there, then we would have a Hanako in our front row that can't do anything, and we could use her as our target for Scrap Dragon. So now we have the Doctor in our front row, which is not really very useful. Like, he has a very good effect in Alonzi here, but let's do a little fandangle here, shall we? So let's say Corin. All right, let's have a. Actually, no, we probably want to keep Corin. Let's play Bridget down. Or Brigitte, whatever. Okay, so Brigitte, let's use our passive first. Once we turn target character you control, place an armor counter on it. Fairly simple. Armor counters are very useful, so let's target Scrap Dragon, place an armor counter. We get this little green counter here. There you go. It's very handy. Remember, you can only have 1 armor counter. So, Dr. Alonzi, his effect can target a character with an attack, make him resolve as a trigger. So let's use Alonzi, target Brigitte here, and use Shield Bash, which does 10 damage and then reduces this character by 6 damage each turn. We'll have to keep that down as a note. So we're going to use Shield Bash, and we're going to resolve as a trigger. We're going to hit Violet. Obviously, there's nothing my opponent has that can stop that, so this card will be sent offline. Remember, when the card is knocked out, they get to draw a card. So Brigitte will write a note. What is this effect called? Shield Bash? Yeah, so we'll just put shielded. Normally it's easier to do something like I spelled that wrong, but it doesn't matter. We'll know what that means. So yeah, any attack she takes next turn, she will take -6 damage from. That's very useful. All of a sudden, these 2 cards can no longer attack. They're dormant, as we say. But we haven't technically used an attack because that resolved as a trigger. So our turn continues, meaning we can now use Scrap Storm. So once done, scrap a card you control, target card your opponent controls, and scrap it. Then I can only attack 2 times a turn. Bearing in mind, we have not considered to have attacked yet, so we can still attack 2 times a turn after using it, because this resolved as a trigger. A lot of useful things. So obviously we're going to target the Doctor here, because he's useless. I guess we'll target Nodoka, it doesn't really matter. And then both these cards are scrapped. So we do not draw a card for our card being scrapped, but our opponent, because we sent it off with our card effect, does still get to draw a card. So there you go, another card for your opponent. So we still have 2 attacks, even though they only have 1 character, so we're very easily going to get a prize this card. Thank you for the advertising, Cloudy. So let's just play a character with a lot of health in the front row. I've put Corin here. She's got a lot of health. That's useful. And now Corin actually has an attack here, the legendary Yato, which only does 10 damage to start with, but you gain the mythical keyword. We were talking about keywords earlier. And then if you use the attack while it has the mythical keyword, you ignore damage reductions on the attack target and inflict double damage, which is incredibly useful. So obviously you're only going to get to do that if she stays in the field for a turn. So we might as well set that up, right? So for our attack, we'll just use the Yato, deal 10 damage, we'll knock Emmy out, and then we will gain the mythical keyword. So, as per usual, we write it as a note. This card now has mythical, and yet when you highlight over a card with notes, it does actually show the notes highlighted over it, so that's very useful. This card is knocked out. The force field obviously doesn't apply anymore because the card using the force field Violet is no longer on the field. So our opponent gets to draw 1 more card because another card of theirs is knocked out. And then back over here, we get a prize card because we've knocked out all of their cards. So we obtain Blizzard. There you go. A useful prize card. Okay, that's cool. If I mean, you already got most of the learning part. If you want to see this part, I will upload it to YouTube later. So I'll make sure to post the link on Discord as well as Twitter. But yeah, so back to the game. We finished our turn. We've obtained a prize card. It is our opponent's turn. So they have a lot more of a difficult field to deal with. We only had to deal with 3 characters with 9 health. They've got a character with 13 health who takes 6 less damage, a character with 14 health, and a character with 13 health and an armor counter. So remember, armor counter's at 8 health, basically. So this is basically 21. If we want to one-shot Scrapjagon, we have to hit him for 21 damage. So in a situation where a character has an armor counter, what you normally want to do is just remove it in a different way. Let's say, for example, we had a Scrapjagon, right? Now, the only problem here is Scrapjagon, his first passive effect says if this card is scrapped, you target a character with 8 or less health in your flying pile and play it to the zone this card was in. So obviously, if we use our Scrapjagon to pop that Scrapjagon, that one will get to bring out a card from your flying pile. Not really an ideal situation. So the better thing to do with our Scrapjagon might be instead to scrap Bridget, or Brigitte, whatever. Sorry, I always call her Bridget. No, it's not necessarily a hard thing. I mean, it's difficult. 21 is definitely a very difficult number to hit, but it is possible. So obviously, she's taking a reduced amount of damage right now. So if we were to destroy it without damaging it, seems like a pretty useful thing to do. So let's use this Scrapjagon. We're going to scrap this Chug Jug, and we're going to scrap this Brigitte here, so we don't have to worry about any of that damage reduction. So obviously this player gets the draw because their card was sent offline by the opponent. We just lost an item, and it wasn't super important. That's what a useful thing about having items on the field. The reason it wasn't super important is because we have another one. So we'll just play the second one. Okay, so we need to have a really big chunky attack for 21 damage. So, but remember, we can only attack twice this turn. So we can't just hit this thing twice to deal with it now. If we want to attack both of them and deal with them, we're going to have to do a big chunky damage. So Scrap Barrage is actually dealing less damage to Corin because she has the armor keyword. Which, kind of a problem, actually. I hadn't considered that possibility. See, this is where keywords are important. Some cards you don't think of them all the time, like a card effect, like my attack here, for example. Obviously, the keywords has nothing to do with my deck, but if my opponent happens to have cards that reduce the damage from it, which both of these cards, this card has armor and this card has metal, so Scrapjagon does less damage to cards of armor and metal. What is the full text on Corin's attack? Which attack are we talking about? Are we talking about Legendary Yato? Because it ignores damage reductions on the attack target and inflicts double damage, if that is the wording you were looking for. I'll leave that open while we are deciding the move we can do here. So we might be looking at this thinking there isn't really a way we can deal with them. I think we can. I will have to check things. The first one ignores keywords. Oh, right, Dragonstone. Yeah. Legendary Yato doesn't. Yeah. So Mo has an attack, Funk Dancing for self-defense, which deals 16 damage, which is obviously enough to knock out Corin. And it also gives him some damage reduction for the turn. But we still got to hit for 21. So let's look at Neku over here. Neku has an attack, Pin Combo, that deals +1 damage for each unique keyword on a character on your front row. So it starts with 0. We check his own keywords. What's he got? Collector, Dimensional, Duo, Emotion, Human, Loathe, Music, Mystery, Psychic. That's 9. So he does 9 damage on his own. So we have Scrapjagon. Dragon is a unique keyword. Heavy is. Metal is. OCG, Wings. Yu-Gi-Oh is not a keyword. Apologize. This is an old card that hasn't been updated. I literally updated it in the last update, and I didn't remove it. I'm an idiot. we have established this. So there used to be things where series keywords were a thing. Basically, all of them aren't in the game anymore. Old cards sometimes still have them written on there, but there is a way you can check what keywords a card has. I will show you that now. So under Preferences, under Appearance, can you see? Yes, you can see this. Okay. There is a thing down here that says always show text of a card viewer. So if you have a smaller screen, or just you can't read the text for whatever reason, you do this and it shows all the keywords at the top of the card right here. I know some people prefer to do that. You can feel free to do that. It shows you all the keywords on the card. It shows you the HP of the card, whatever. It's kind of useful to have. Yes, yeah. There are 2 YukiVerse specific series that have kept their keywords, their series keywords. They are 2 very. Literally the card I'm showing you right here has that. The HSALC as a YukiVerse specific keyword. But that's neither here nor there, really. So yeah, you can do this to show all the text at the top if you like. Nodoka has not been updated. I don't just mean recently, I mean ever. This card has never changed. But as you can see, so the actual keywords listed here, like, so on the card it still says she has K on, but on the keywords it's not there. I don't know why I'm pointing at my screen as if you can see that. So some people like to have that up. I personally don't, because I can read my own things, but it's your own your own choice whether you want to have that up or not. I'm just letting you know it's there as an option. I should probably go through the preferences tab. I was going to, like, towards the end, because that's very specific to Jeff Lackey stuff. But so anyway, yes, Neku, we counted 9 on his own, 5 on Scrap Dragon, so that's 14. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So we need to be hitting 21. So let's look at Mo. That alcohol, firearm, human and loathe aren't new ones. Do you have stench? You don't have stench. Okay, what you might do. Stench is a new one. Simps is not a keyword. So that's only adding 3 more keywords there. So altogether, that's what, 18. Obviously, if he uses funk dancing for self-defense, he gains teacher, which would be 90. We actually can't deal enough. Wow, I was not expecting that. Normally Neku is a card that you play him on the field and he can just deal a massive chunk of damage in one shot, but he actually can't deal enough in this situation. So yeah. All right, fair enough then. Yeah, Alan's is a once per turn. Now, we didn't use that this turn. That was the opponent's turn. So there is still a possibility here. So, you know what? The Doctor has an awful lot of keywords, actually. Maybe we can do this a different way. Let's play the Doctor in the front row. And then let's play Neku in the front row. So, we counted there were 15 between Scrap Dragon and Neku, correct? Alien is a different one. Ancient. I think creative is not different. No, creative is different. Dimensional definitely isn't. Duo isn't. Famous, future, genius, hacker, hero, history, parent, space, tech, time, and zen. That is an extra 14 keywords. Yes, Cardi has pointed something out. So the Doctor has psychic paper. I can gain any keyword I want from the game. Neku also has choose your pin, which until the end of... Is it till the end of the turn? Till the end of your opponent's turn, I get to choose one of those keywords and add that. So that's an extra 2. So between that's like 30 keywords, which means pin combo is dealing about 30 damage. So let's say we use psychic paper. Let's gain... okay, here's an idea. So this card deals less damage to characters with certain keywords, right? So gravity. Let's gain the gravity keyword. Actually, I think gravity is one of the ones that Neku can gain, right? Yeah, so we'll use choose your pin to gain gravity with Neku. So that's 1 extra keyword here. The classic, yeah, that was the old meta. Always choosing gravity to counter Scrap Dragon. We haven't got heavy, so we'll use the psychic paper to have Doctor gain heavy. So all of my characters are now taking less damage in case our opponent has another Scrap Dragon. Obviously, we're about to try and knock out the Scrap Dragon. So then we'll use Alan Z, target Neku, target pin combo, resolving it as a trigger. It's going to hit for 30 damage, or however much we worked it out at. 29, I guess 31 now, because we just added 2 more. Which is more than enough damage to knock out the Scrap Dragon. So the Scrap Dragon goes, and we still get to resolve our turn, because we haven't done an attack. We've just done a trigger. So even though we can only attack twice, there's only 1 character left on the field, so it doesn't really matter. However, we are going to have to actually play a second character, so we're going to have to remove the Doctor and play Mo. So, in case I didn't mention before, if you have a character in your hand you want to play, and you want to play it to a zone that already has a card in, you can simply just play it over that card and send the card offline. You don't get anything for it. You just minus the card that was on the field. But you can just play over a card like that. That is absolutely what you can do. Except when it comes to dole cards. There's a very specific ruling with dole cards. Because you're not playing a character, you're playing an item, you have to move, even though it doesn't say an empty zone. It really should. I probably will do that. I'll update their text. But you have to play them into an empty zone, is basically what I'm trying to say. So yeah, we played Mo here now. We'll use Funk Dancing for self-defense. Does 16 damage. He gains some keywords, so let's write those down. It's music and teacher. I don't think that's really important, but we'll write them down anyway. And he will take -3 damage from all attacks next turn. So we knocked out Corin. Means we get 1 more prize card. So we go to the hand there, and our opponent gets to draw a card because their last character was knocked out. 1 more turn. So, draw for turn. We're back on this turn. Currently prize is 4-3. Everyone following the game so far? I'm hoping I'm doing a decent job of explaining everything as I'm going along. I'm trying my best. I've never specifically been good at like tutorial type things, but yes, there are definitely cards that can move some cards around. I don't think there are any in the tutorial deck. In fact, there aren't actually that many anymore in the game. I think Midori might be the only card that... Oh, well, Nodoka. We literally saw it earlier. We saw Nodoka. She can swap places with a card. He's right here. But just directly moving a card. I think Midori is the only card that does it right now, because Natsuki and Yuri used to have that effect, but I replaced them with much more useful effects. So we're looking at 12 health, and 13 health now. No, Yuri cannot anymore. Yuri and Natsuki got new effects that stop them being affected. Stop all the rest of your cards being affected by passives and triggers. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully by the end of the game you'll have got more of the gist of it as well. Yes, yeah. And this is recorded as a video, so you can always come back to this later. I probably won't have cut out all my rambling in the middle, because I feel like most of my rambling has at least been relevant to, I haven't gone off on a tangent. Yeah, Lee, I just realised you always play Yuri, and you literally didn't even know what her first effect was. Right, so how are we going to deal with this field? So this guy, I didn't add a note, but I should note that he's taking -3. -3 damn. So that is a problematic field to deal with. Our hand does not really have the cards to be able to deal with that, honestly. So if I remember rightly, we already searched our deck for dolls, and there wasn't any more Toadette dolls in there. How does one come back from a situation where they have more prizes and seem to be on the fast track to losing? Well, one thing that I've noticed a lot of people do when I'm the one with the more prizes and my opponent, it seems to be on the losing track, is they will start to play a more defensive game. Because if you can have one whole turn where your opponent cannot knock out your front row, you can start to pull a game back, right? And that's all it can take at the end of the day, just one turn of not having your opponent take your front row. So let's start with Anna. Anna doesn't have much health, but she has a useful effect, PK Freeze, which actually will knock something out. Never mind. I was going to say it can freeze one of our opponent's characters. Maybe that wasn't quite such a useful play. I guess time will tell. Let's play Nodoka. Let's use Brains over Brawn, swap places with Anna. So we get to draw a free card and see if that helps us. So we've drawn Emmy. That is not incredibly useful. We could get 2 draws off a future pirate, which requires us to have 3 characters with disability in the front row. We already have Nodoka here. We've got Emmy here. We could play another Nodoka or play Hanako. All of them have that keyword. I'm not sure that that's our best play, because then we'd have 3 characters in the front row. Well, one of them would have an attack. But I think that this is very much a tricky situation that I'm not sure how we get out of. I feel like Mo knocking something out is probably a good idea. So this is taking -3 damage. So our Mo can still knock out their Mo. As a good thing to note. Anna can knock out Scrap Dragons. We just need something to deal 12 damage to Neku, and we should have enough. We don't have 12 damage is the thing. Unless we do have 12 damage. So let us remove Nodoka from our field and play Emmy in her place. Don't forget searching, since the passive can't be used before attacking while a trigger can't... Wait, what? Sorry, I need to read that sentence again. That confused me. Don't forget searching, since a passive can be used before attacking while a trigger can't unless stated otherwise. Mo Search. Oh, Mo Search is a trigger, yeah. Oh, no, it's a passive now. It used to be a trigger. I'll be honest, I wasn't using it because I thought it was a trigger. In his old card, it used to be a trigger effect, and I was like, I want to attack with him. I did change that to a passive, so we could search a card with Mo to get an extra card to hand. That's probably a good idea. We'll search our deck for a card with the alcohol keyword. Which is Yuri in this deck? Yuri is in this deck. There she is. I think I could either search and have a copy of Mo, which might be more useful to us in this situation, I think. But I think Mo and Yuri are the only cards in here with that keyword. So let's reveal this Mo to our opponent, add to our hand. So we have another Mo in case our Mo is sent offline. Obviously, this game specifically is a very streamlined game where the interactions don't seem very impressive because A, they're both the same deck, and B, the cards were designed to be extremely simple for this deck specifically, since it's the starter deck. This is like the equivalent of playing like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Starter deck, where it's like, oh, you got a bunch of normal monsters. We don't actually in here. There is what we have the equivalent of normal monsters as a character with 3 attack effects, so we do have this, and Corin. But obviously they still have effects. They're not actually normal monsters. Yes, I did actually mention that earlier, Cloudy. But thank you for reiterating it. So, Emmy as attack FUD does 8 damage, which is obviously not enough. But if it attacks the character in the zone directly in front of her, which obviously we're trying to knock out Neku here, it deals an extra 6 damage, which would be 14 damage, which is enough to knock out Neku. So, in this situation, looking at this field, I think we want to play down our second Chug Jug, because, okay, in general, you don't always want to play down all your items. Keeping them in your hand, obviously, extra hand advantage, your opponent doesn't know what you've got in your hand. There are some cards that need items or whatever in your hand. In this specific scenario, I know this deck has literally nothing. The only way to remove my items from the field, from the opponent, is with Scrap Dragon. And I very much doubt someone's going to use Scrap Dragon to pop a Chug Jug. I'll tell you, don't do that. It's a bad idea. It's a waste. So in this situation, I'm just going to play them down to the field for the sake of it. So before we go into our attacking, we're going to use Toadette Doll here. So play in a character zone. We have back row zones here we haven't been using. So her effect is I can send this card offline, target a character I control, and then that character takes -6 damage from every attack next turn. So, yes, Toadette Doll is a very good defensive card, so we're going to use this effect here. Send it offline, and we're going to target Mo. So, Mo, Toad Doll. So that's -6 damage from any attack next turn. Yes, Hanako, that's why Hanako is such an incredibly useful card. There are a lot of doll cards. I'll go through them when we're doing like deck constructions. So we know we have enough attack on our field to knock out all of our opponent's characters. We've played a defensive card for Mo. We've got our Chug Jugs at the ready. So now we just attack. Mo is going to use his Funk Dancing for self-defense on the opponent's Mo, since he's reducing 3 damage, but 16 is still enough to knock it out. Which means we also now get that extra -3 damage, and then Music Teacher. Or just whatever, you know what that is. Which does mean he's now going to take -9 damage from every attack, since they stack up together, you know? So this Mo is sent offline. We'll do that as well. Here, I'll send it offline here. Then Anna's going to use PK Freeze, 13 damage. No extra effect needed. Knocks that out. Emmy will use FUD, which will deal the extra 6. Knock out Neku. So we get a prize, and our opponent gets to draw 3 cards. Sometimes it's easier just to do all the attacks like that. Normally when we're playing, just to save time, we do that. So then we just draw 3, and then draw 1 for turn. Other player's turn. Okay, so back to 3-3, we're equal. You can start to probably see why going first in this game puts you at a huge disadvantage. Obviously, in this scenario, I use backup instead of creating a defensive field. If you're playing a very defensive deck, going first could potentially have advantage. Here's a little sneak peek for everyone. But card 200, which is going to be a new type of card, every 100 cards in the game in base set, I release a new type of card, is actually going to be a card that's going to help people who are going first. You heard it here first, folks. I'm making a new type of defensive card. So there's a little... I guess if you're watching this on YouTube in the future, that type of card might already exist. In which case, I'm sorry I haven't explained how it works, because it doesn't exist yet. Bit of an awkward time, like just before a big update. There's like one more update before the like big update where a new type of card is added to the game. So I guess shrugs at that. It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't say burn focused. Exodia decks, absolutely. Yeah, if I'm playing Akko Exodia, I don't care if I go first. I just want to draw cards. So I'll just take all the advantage I can get. The only problem with that, obviously, is if you use backup and hit Akko. That kind of sucks. So, back here. This is the scenario we're in. We have a Mo who's taking -9 damage from all attacks. We have Anna on 7 health and Emmy on 9 health. They're not too much of a problem. But we have to be able to deal... If we want to one-shot Mo, it's 21. That seems to be a number that happens a lot. I don't know if it was intentional in the design, and I'm the designer, so if I don't know that, no one does. So, the real question is, can we hit for that much damage? Now, we have an interesting card here we could potentially use to try and muddle up this damage. So Yukari has an attack called Here's Our Chance. You select 2 more of your front row characters that have an attack this turn and have an attack effect. You add the damage of 1 attack from each of them to this damage and then split the damage between them, but those characters cannot attack this turn. So, obviously a useful thing to do with this is if you use Scrap Dragon, for example, only 2 of your characters can attack this turn, or if you've used like Avon Zeal on something, you've used a trigger so they can't attack, you can still target them with Here's Our Chance and use it as our only attacking turn. Definitely some uses there. But you get to add the damage from 3 attacks together, one of them just being this 5, which is not great, and then split them up however you like between the characters. So that could be a useful way to try and deal with Mo. Only if we have strong attacks in the hand, which we do have 20. So, okay, here's a good combo of that. Who Needs Friends I've Got Knives is a very difficult attack to use since you have to roll 6-sided dice, normally shortened to a d6, but this is an old card. If your result is less than 5, it deals 0. So basically, you have to roll a 6 or more. Technically more, because there are effects that add to dice rolls. I don't know if you noticed earlier the effect of Hanako. We didn't mention her middle effect. Anytime you roll a 6-sided dice, you can add 1 to that roll. There are quite a few effects that add to rolls. So it is possible to roll more than a 6 with a 6-sided dice. So just keep that in mind. There's no limit. I know, like in a real life card game, you'd be like, well, a real life dice roll, you couldn't have more than a 6. But because we're a digital card game, we don't care about rules like that in real life, and we can have a 6-sided dice that brings more than that. Yes, yeah. There's some things that only add to d20, some things that only add to d6s, but there are lots of things like that. So, so this attack normally fails, right? But if we add the 20 damage from that attack to Here's Our Chance, I mean, that's already hitting for 25, and that's only with 1 other character, right? So, and it does say up to 2 other characters, so we could choose to only target 1 other character, being Mad Dummy, adding that 20 damage, which is, normally an attack you don't want to use, but having a massive attack damage with an effect like this, a useful combo. And then we could hit Mo for 21 damage, knocking him out, and then deal the other 4 to, say, Anna, because then she's only on 3 health. Which Blizzard deals 2 damage, unfortunately. Because otherwise we could use Blizzard to knock her out beforehand. Do we have any trigger effects that deal burn damage here? We don't. Okay. So I think what we want to do to start off with here, we'll play Yukari down, because we're going to have to use her, right? We'll play Nodoka, and we'll do what we do every turn. We use Brains over Brawn, swap their places, and get a free draw. There are quite a few cards, like Nodoka and like Yuri, that just have a simple effect that does something useful, and then you get a draw at the end of the turn. Or a draw at the end of the effect, sorry. So more often than not, cards like that tend to be run a lot. They're not super powerful or broken, which I'll explain when we get into deck building why they're not super powerful. But they're very useful to have around, especially if they're like Nodoka here, who can copy any trigger effect in the game, which is incredibly powerful. Well, you'd think so. It never seems to be as useful as you like. Okay, so if you're an effect veiler, that could be very handy. I'll have to remember that's here, or chat will have to remind me that's here, since I'm obviously looking between 2 hands. So actually, speaking of trigger effects, I'm trying to think if there is anything we could do with this Nodoka here. There actually isn't. There isn't a single useful trigger effect we can get here. I mean, there's Violet, but we don't want to keep Nodoka in the front row, really, so... Okay, so our best bet, we do want to play this Mad Dummy. We want to be able to knock out that Mo. But I don't know if we have a way to deal with everything else. So, that will be 25. If we put Violet down, that will be 31, right? So we need 21 to knock this out. We can knock out Emmy and deal 1 damage to Anna. So now, okay. Here's an idea. So Blizzard deals 2 damage across the board, stops them taking actions, and then they take -1 damage from sources next turn. Which is very interesting wording in that they take less damage from their own effects. Oh, it says until your next turn. I can't read. Reading cards is important, kids. I was going to say, why have I worded it like that? Okay, so that does make more sense. So we could deal 6 across the board, but then deal 3 less with Here's Our Chance. I'm trying to work out if the maths here is correct. So Here's Our Chance will be adding up right now to 25, 31, right? And the full board there, it's 21, 28, 37. Okay. So -6 off that would put it down to 31, but then they take 1 less damage from each. Okay, so that doesn't quite work. Yeah, so yeah, if we haven't gone over Dummy's defensive potential, there's a reason we want Dummy in the front row here. So Dummy takes half damage from every card that doesn't have the magic keyword. So unless you happen to be playing against a magic deck, or your opponent's stolen your card with magic, which is another thing to point out, you can steal your opponent's cards from the offline pile. So if there are cards like Mad Dummy here that does take half damage, you might be thinking, wow, my deck doesn't run any cards of magic. No, but you could just use one of your opponent's cards, you know, because this card itself has magic. So there are a lot of things to keep in mind with that. I'm pretty sure Yukari has magic too, doesn't she? She does not. I'm not professing to have ever played Persona. So we're going to have to send this card offline because it's not helping us in any way. We're going to play Violet. So what we're going to do here is going to use Violet, is going to use Force Field on Yukari. Get rid of all these. So Yukari cannot take damage while Violet is on the field. Does she need magic? Like, I don't know if Persona is a magic. Do they use magic? I don't know how it works. I gave her power because she has like a power, but I never figured it was like magic, you know? So now we are going to use, here's our chance, add up all our attack damage. So we've got 20 here, we've got only a measly 6 here. But you got to remember, because we've used a shield, if Violet lives till next turn, we get to attack everything with it. So we're going to be hitting for 31 damage across the board. So we know we need 21 to knock out Mo, so we're going to hit 21 on Mo. And then we're going to hit 9 on Emmy, and I guess we'll hit 1 on Anna, because why not? So we knock out 2 characters as 1 attack, and then this one gets to live, so we'll write a note on this one, -1, -1 health. So opponent could choose to use Chug Jug if they wanted to heal it, but these 2 cards are sent offline. This player gets to draw 2. However, we didn't successfully knock out all the front row characters, so because of that, the turn's over, no one else can attack. We get to draw for turn, and suddenly our defensive field was good enough that we might be in with a chance now. Excuse me. So, let's go back to this turn and see if we can turn this game around. So we got Scrap Dragon, we got Neku, we got plenty of things. Now, Mad Dummy, normally a problem you have to hit with magic. You're looking at this thinking, this doesn't have magic, this has psychic, because in Earthbound they use psi effects. Looking at our hand, we don't have any cards with magic, unless you do. Nope. But Neku here, one of his pins that he can choose has magic. So if we plop Neku down, we use Choose Your Pin, and we give him the magic keyword. All of a sudden, not only is he not dealing half damage to this Mad Dummy, but he is dealing double instead, because that's how it works. From the jugs, I'm talking about, I just got a bottle of water. So we've got Neku, who can now hit Mad Dummy for double damage. We could count up all the keywords, but I'll tell you that there's more than 8, because Neku has 9. So we don't need to. Sometimes it's just easier like that, because obviously we want to be attacking Mad Dummy with Neku since he's the only one with the magic keyword. So these 2 have, we have to deal with Violet first, so we need something that can hit for 9 damage. We have our own Yukari here. We could play Yukari and heal our Anna back to full health, for whatever that's worth, since Yukari also has a passive effect that can heal characters. And it also lets you draw if you heal a certain amount of damage. So if you have a really big chunky health minion, character, sorry, it has like 20 health, for example, and it's taken 18 damage, which is a very possible scenario you can put yourself into, I want to point out, because there's a card that reduces the health of all characters on the field to 1. You can then heal it back to full and draw 2 cards. It's pretty useful. So I think we're going to hold on to our Scrap Dragon here, since we know how useful that is, and we've mostly dealt with the board. We need something that can hit for 9 damage, which shouldn't be too difficult. We could use Hotsuma here. We kind of want to get his armor counter if we use him, though. So that's not entirely reliable, honestly. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to play... You know, Scrap Dragon's starting to see... we might play Hotsuma, honestly. I don't know. It feels like a waste. Definitely feels like a waste of a card. It would show bleed counters, but it won't. It won't show bleed counters. It will just show you what they look like, and then we'll kill the character. I'll hold on to him until I feel like... I think they're just... I think we're going to do a Mo play. If we're going to do a Mo, we're going to do a Toadette Doll. We saw this was very successful defensive play last turn, so we'll send Toadette Doll offline. Targeting Mo, so it's -6. We will go for our attacks. Mo's going to use Funk Dancing for self-defense on Violet. I know that's very overkill, but so we'll just do the note all in one. So it's -9, so it's the 2 effects, and then keywords. Because I'm lazy, and we all know what they are by now, because we've seen them 3 times. Once you start to get to know the game, you'll notice we'll sometimes shorthand things. Not normally just writing keyword. I didn't write a note on that at all. Oops. Not normally quite that lazy, but sometimes, you know, just for the matter of things. So we've knocked out this. This will use PK Freeze on this, 13, that'll deal enough. This will deal ping combo on this one, that'll deal enough. So all 3 of these characters are knocked out. We get another prize. Oops, I added to prizes. That was a misclick. Let's put that back on top of the deck. Don't do that at home. I've never done that before. So yeah, we'll swap to this side. All these 3 characters sent offline. They're all knocked out. We get 3 draws, and then draw for turn. So the decks right now are both down to 15 cards for anyone who has been paying attention to deck sizes. So an interesting thing to note about these starter decks is that they are 40-card decks. That isn't necessarily a thing you have to do. I did say we were going to go over deck building as soon as this game's over, which will be very soon, by the way. The start of YCG games tend to be a bit slower while you're building up plans. Once you get a solid foundation on the field, the end part of the game tends to go a bit quicker. So in this scenario here, obviously, we're in a losing situation. We've got to somehow come out of it. So we're going to play Hotsuma. So Anna only has 7 health. So we're going to use the effect Quick Dash. Something to remind me about? Oh yeah, it was Effect Veiler. we could have used Effect Veiler to... Can it stop attacks? I don't think it can stop attack. 9 passes and triggers. So actually, no, it didn't matter. I didn't use any passes and triggers that turn, so it wouldn't have made a difference. So we're going to use Quick Dash, which is an attack when you use it. Okay. But it resolves as a passive, so the rest of our turn can continue. Hotsuma can still use effects. So it deals 2 damage. So we're going to hit this Anna here, who still has 1 damage on because they did not heal. So that 1 damage becomes 3 damage. And then they also gain a bleed counter. So, as I said earlier, bleed counter works like poison. At the end of every turn, and that's the end of both players' turns, a character with bleed counter takes 3 damage. It looks really weird when you see it upside down. I never really thought about how weird that looks upside down. It's like I don't know what it looks like. Obviously, it's supposed to be a droplet, but... so yeah, she has a bleed counter on now. So after taking that bleed counter damage, she will be on 1 HP. So if we can find an extra way to do 1 HP, that'd be great. Which, of course, we can. So we have Blizzard in our hand. It's very good to know. But we've obviously got to try and find a way to deal with Mo. Mo will take the damage from Blizzard, since he only is reducing attack damage. But it's not a very reliable damage output. So we are looking, instead of trying to go for KO here, we're looking for a more defensive field. So knocking out Anna with Blizzard is still a defensive play, because obviously we can freeze these 2 characters. So we're going to use Ninjutsu Raijin, put an armor counter on ourselves. So let's use a trigger now. Wow, these counters are upside down too, huh? I've never played as the second player, so I didn't actually know. I've never seen upside down counters before. They look kind of weird. Anyway, so Hotsuma, obviously you know what an armor counter does already. It's basically like an extra 8 health. But Hotsuma has a special effect when he has an armor counter on. So this is a good example, a good excuse to teach you about lingering effects of triggers. So with passive effects, they're fairly self-explanatory. A character will have a passive. It's either something you activate, like it'll say once per turn or each turn or something like that. You can activate a passive and then it just activates. Or it's a passive that always applies on the field. So Effect Veiler here has a Protective Veil. It says your opponent can't target cards you control with magic keywords, and then your passive and trigger effects can't be negated. And this card can't have more than 1 HP. That is an effect that's just permanent. While that is on the field, that effect is always active. Whereas something like Choose Your Pin is obviously you directly activate it. So there are like 2 types of passives. With triggers, you have to activate them. There's no triggers, you know, obviously they're not the word passive. So the difference is, with a trigger, they can have effect like Hotsuma here. So if an attack should cause this card to lose its armor counter, you roll a d6, and if the result is a 4 or more, negate the attack. So that is a, what's the word? I used the word earlier, and it's just gone from my mind. A lingering effect of a trigger. So as soon as you've used that trigger once, for as long as that card is still on the field, that effect will linger forever. There aren't a lot of lingering effective triggers, but there are a few. Hotsuma is probably the best example of one, which is definitely why he's in this starter deck. So for as long as this card is on the field, so obviously you might think, well, you've just used the trigger, right? A lot of the card layout is designed around the Pokemon TCG because, in my opinion, that is the game that displays cards the best, like the way they're laid out on the card. So yes, there is definitely a lot of inspiration from how Pokemon TCG cards are laid out. So yeah, with the lingering effect of this, I've used this trigger once, so as long as Hotsuma still has that armor counter, he will be able to roll that dice every time he should lose it. Which is incredibly useful, as I'm sure you can tell. A very good defensive strategy. You wouldn't think, looking at a ninja character with 8 health, that he's a very defensive card, but he is. He's one of the more useful defensive cards. So while we're on our defensive plays then, we're going to use Blizzard. Yep, just checking I was playing it in the right place so you can see it. We're going to use Blizzard, so it deals 2 damage to all of opponent's characters, so this is going to go up to 5 damage now, which the bleed counter damage will obviously knock that out. And then these other 2 will take 2, and then they're all frozen. Why does that say -9? Oh, -9 damage, right. That was confusing me for a second. So, -2 health. I'm going to have to rewrite this out here. And then -9 dam. See, that sometimes being lazy when you're writing notes definitely doesn't help. So he still has magic keyword for now. And then -2. Okay, so there's all our notes. So we'll take a -2, and they can't use any effects that don't resolve as passes. -1 from Blizzard does not affect bleed counters. No damage reduction affects bleed counters at all. Bleed counters will always deal free unless something directly stops it. The only card that does directly stop bleed counters, I believe, is Beach Umbrella, which was added in the most recent Beach update. I think that's the only card in the game that stops them right now. So bleed counters are potentially incredibly useful at this point in the game. But I guess it's because there aren't that many cards that place them for now, so I haven't really made any sort of counters to them. There are a few, but So, obviously we're trying to build a defensive board again. You know what card's really defensive? Brigitte. Brigitte is a very defensive card. You know why? Because she can place an armor counter on a character you control. Doesn't stop her from placing it on herself, so we're going to use her effect to place an armor counter on herself. That is an awful lot more health on our board. Now, we could use the Toadette doll here as even more defense, but looking at our board and looking at that, I mean, these cards can't attack, remember? So if our opponent wants to attack us, they're going to have to replace the card. Well, this Anna's going offline anyway, but they're going to have to replace the other cards because they can't attack this turn because they're frozen from Blizzard. So as a defensive play, I think this is probably a good place to leave the turn. So we didn't, at the end of the turn, this is knocked out. So we pass back to this turn. This gets knocked out from the bleed damage. We get a draw from that, and we get a draw from turn. So, obviously our opponent in this situation is on the losing foot. They have 3 prizes left instead of the 2 that we have. But dealing with these cards on the field... Oh, yeah, that's literally the only counter to bleed counters in the game. There is nothing that stops the damage from bleed counters right now, no. So we have to try and see if we can work... Okay, so all these other effects on these things, they're all gone now. So we got the -2 still, not the damage. All those effects, like the keywords and the damage, whatever, that was all temporary. As not every effect like that is temporary, but they do, like Neku's Choose Your Pin specifically says until the end of your opponent's turn, and then Mo until the end of your next turn. So yes, they were all temporary. Oh, until the end of your next turn. Oh, you can't use the attack until the end of your next turn. Sorry, I misread that. That's fine. So we are stuck here with a Mo and a Neku that cannot attack. We have a basically 18 health and 21 health. Really does end up on 21 a lot, doesn't it? I must have subconsciously done that. I don't think I intentionally did that, So can we potentially deal that much damage? I mean, the thing with Hotsuma is, even if we could deal that much damage, the dice roll effect is obviously stopping us from being able to effectively deal with it anyway. So this is where a card like Scrap Dragon comes in useful. We can't attack, we can attack this, but our attack could be negated. So let's use Scrap Dragon. Scrap Storm, pop one of our cards. Mo is useless to us since he can't resolve his effect anyway right now. So we can scrap that to scrap Hotsuma. Our opponent gets to draw a card, but that's one armor counter completely gone that we don't have to deal with. Now we only have 1 character to deal with. So we've got a hit for 21 on this Brigitte here. Other than the search. Oh, other than the search effect. Yeah, we could have used the search effect, but I mean, there was 1 Yuri left to search. It wasn't super necessary. So this Neku can't attack, but the Scrap Dragon can attack. So Scrap Barrage is only going to be hitting for 8 damage because Brigitte has armor, which does mean we could just remove. So remember, we can only attack twice because of Scrap Storm. We could just remove the armor counter with Scrap Barrage. So can we then deal 13 damage with another attack? Is the real question. Or we could just put Yukari on the field with another attacker. That's probably our best bet. So let's put Yukari down. Let's go to Neku because it's worthless. He can't do anything now. He's frozen. We'll place Hotsuma down. We could put the bleed counter on here, but there's not really any point because we're gonna add all these attacks together. That's what, 24, 20, 27 damage, and there's only one character to target. I think we'll be fine. So what we're gonna do is use Hotsuma's Ninjutsu Raijin, which is a trigger, so he can't do anything else this turn. Get his armor counter, and then we will use Here's Our Chance, add the attack of Scrap Barrage and Cursed Blade together. Deal 27 damage. That's obviously more than enough to knock out Brigitte. So there she goes. We get another prize card. Only one prize to go, and this game is won. So obviously, our friend Mr. Test Dummy over here really has to come up with some amazing play to try and pull this back. So, oh, there is actually the T-Break is actually in this deck. Huh, we do actually have the card that scraps an item. Well, I never. What possible scenario could we do? You know what we didn't do? Remember when you said about reminding me of cards? So when Scrap Dragon used his Scrap Storm, if I remembered, because obviously I'm playing both players, what you would do in that scenario is you'd Effect Veiler it. That just feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh play. Like anyone who's played Yu-Gi-Oh knows that, right? Scrap Dragon tries to pop your card, you drop Effect Veiler. It's pretty self-explanatory. So we could have been in a better scenario here, but I totally forgot the Effect Veilers there. It's kind of difficult to use hand traps when you're playing 2 players, so forgive me for that one. That misplay probably has caused Test Dummy the game here. His best play would be probably drop Hotsuma, put an armor counter on him, drop Mo, drop Brigitte, use the armor counter on Mo, and then I guess you'd have to keep the Toadette doll for next turn. Oh no, you'd probably use the Toadette doll on Mo as well. Then Funk Dance. What did T-Break do before being changed? So T-Break used to protect one of your cards from being affected by any card effects. But because it's food, cards of food, the food keyword, are very easy to recur. So you could do it every turn and basically make an invincible card, and it was broken. Literally the mere definition of a broken card. So we definitely changed that. So I guess we'll do that play then. We'll plot these cards on the field. It's probably the best play that this has, to go for it. So yeah, we use Toadette doll on Mo. So remember that's -6 on that. We can use Mo's passive to search for an alcohol card, I guess. There's only 12 cards left in our deck, so with 3 prizes left to go, it might actually be best not to search for a card, since you will draw cards whenever your front row cards get removed. So you're drawing, assuming you survive, probably 3 cards a turn. It probably is better at this point to not search for cards, especially as the losing player is also on less cards in their deck. We could search for Hanako and then see if there's another Toadette doll, but I have a feeling we've used both now, so I don't think there's one in there anyway. And this deck only has 2. So yeah, we'll use Raijin, add an armor counter. We'll use Brigitte's Repair Pack, add an armor counter to Mo. And then probably we drop Blizzard here, which won't deal any damage to Hotsuma because he has an armor counter. We'll deal 2 damage to these 2 and freeze all 3 of them. Which, is probably the best defensive play that our Test Dummy friend here can do. And then, just for good measure, we will use Funk Dancing for self-defense to knock out the Scrap Dragon. And, gain the extra. Has this actually got -2 damage? I don't think it does, does it? -9 damage. And all the other keywords that we already know those. So that's the most defensive play you could do in that scenario. We get to 1 draw from our character being knocked out, 1 draw for turn. And this is probably the final turn of the game. So we don't have a Scrap Dragon in the hand, which does mean we can't just freely remove those cards. So we do actually have to deal with Hotsuma legitimately, therefore meaning it might not be the final turn of the game. Obviously, we've got Here's Our Chance as a potential. The problem is if we try to hit multiple characters and include Hotsuma, he can negate it. Since his attack negation doesn't matter if the attack targets him or not, it's just whether it would remove the armor counter. If you're doing less damage than the armor counter, what's the point of even damaging it, right? So our ideal here, so we need to hit this for 21 and this for 13. So if we can get Here's Our Chance up to, oh man, 34? I don't think that's happening. Does the attack negation work if you Blizzard? Those characters cannot activate effects that don't resolve as passives and take -1 damage from all sorts until your next turn. Yes, because you're not activating the effect. So when you activate the trigger, that was pasting the armor counter on. I tried to explain this earlier, obviously didn't explain it very well. The rest of the effect of that trigger is all a lingering effect. Or is that the word I use? I can't remember if that's what. Whatever. It's an effect that sort of applies to him, so it's like part of the card rather than something you activate. You do not activate, like you roll that dice, that isn't you activating an effect. That is just a thing that happens every time his armor counts should be removed. So that will still happen, even if you freeze him and stop him from being able to activate the trigger, he will still be able to resolve that. So in this scenario, since we are on 1 prize left to win, our best bet might genuinely just be to leave these cards on the field that didn't get knocked out last turn. It might be a good idea to drop this Yukari here. Then we can remove Bridget to stop her giving more armors. Yeah, it's basically like Marshmallow not being sure about. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to start with Yuri. We're going to do Prepare the Tea, which restores 5 health to one of our characters. Yukari did take 2 damage here. So we will get to restore this 2 damage from Yukari. She's back to full health. And if all your characters are full HP when this effect resolves, you get to draw a card, so we get to draw 1 as well. We have an effect for it as well ourselves now. We're then going to drop Blizzard, because since we have 2 Blizzards here, it's not really super important. So we freeze all these characters. We only deal damage to Brigitte, since the others have armor counters, but they're all frozen. Just remember that they're frozen because I can't be able to write the note. Then we will play Violet. We will play. I guess we'll play Yukari. It's probably our best bet here. We're going to use Violet's Force Field on this Yukari. So, Force Field. So she can't receive damage unless Violet leaves the field. And then we're going to use Here's Our Chance to add attack effects. We'll add the Please Hit from here to make this 15. Then the 12 from this, making it 27, which is more than enough damage to knock out Brigitte. We could knock out Mo, but he can't use Funk Dancing for self-defense next turn. And she can place more armor counters next turn. Yeah, you know what? That's actually, we could... I mean, we're going to be dealing too much damage here anyway, but that's actually not a bad idea. So I think we're going to use the Tea Break, just to show you how this card works. Target character you control and add your hand. You cannot play a card with that number this turn. So if we target, let's say, for example, we can't target Yukari because we've already played another Yukari this turn. We could target this Yuri. Wait, actually, does it say the rest of the turn? Oh, no, it says this turn. Oh, actually, we can't. We actually can't use it unless we bounce Hotsuma, because we played a card of these numbers this turn. But if I'd have done that at the beginning of the turn and bounced this Yukari, that would have been a good idea, because obviously this is frozen and can't do anything right now. This one's not. Obviously we played this one this turn, and because it's the same, it does specifically say the same number. So one thing I'll note about numbers in the bottom right corner of the card, you've probably seen them on all these cards. Here's like number 107. The number is what signifies it being a different card. So if 2 cards have the exact same name, which there are several instances of, I'll give you an example when we're doing the deck building section. They're not considered the same card unless they have the same number. So there are alternate art cards. Kirby, for example, has a summer alt from the summer event that I just did, the Beach Up episode update that was the last update that came out. So he has an alternate artwork, but there's he's obviously considered the same card as the original Kirby. Yukari is a very common name. There are 3 cards in this game that have the name Yukari. 2 of them are the same character, to be fair, but they're still different cards. So you can run up to 9 cards that are literally all just called Yukari, which I'm sure Cloudy remembers from one of my decks. I did exactly that. But they're all considered different cards. Well, three of them are different, three of them are different, three of them are different. So, yep, we'll go back to here. So we force fielded this. We're going to use, here's our chance, adding all the damage together, that's 27. Knock out Brigitte, so that we don't have to worry about that armor counter. Opponent does get a draw, and then we will end our turn. So they draw, and then they draw for turn. So we're down to 10 cards now. Both players are on 10 cards. Getting free prize cards with 10 cards remaining is quite difficult, in all honesty. So, what is the play for this player? How do they try and get out of this scenario? Again, if I remember the effect veilers, which I do keep forgetting, we probably would have effect veilered the Raijin. Oh, the Raijin was from last turn. Never mind. No, we wouldn't. We could have effect veilered the force field. That probably would have been a good idea, but I keep forgetting because I'm swapping between hands. So apologies. If you were playing this at home and you were playing this game, you would have been able to stop that defensive play from your opponent and maybe had a chance here. I think the best bet here would be, I mean, again, it would be here's our chance, right? Like, these two cards are frozen, so there's nothing they can do. I mean, we could PK freeze, deal 13 damage to this Yukari, knock it out. We literally cannot knock out all of the characters, I don't think. Like, what we've got here, 16 damage and 12 damage, that's 28. Plus the 5, that's 33 damage. We have to knock out Violet because it's protecting this. We have to then knock out this, so that's 21 already. That'd be another 16. Yeah, it's not possible. Make sure to write an angry comment about every single misplay if you're watching on YouTube. Please do. Yes, I will read those. I promise. So I believe this is the snow. Well, I guess you don't. I guess he doesn't need to scoop yet because okay. So this -9 damage is gone. He was taking -9 damage. He's not taking that anymore. There's no Toadette Doll. There's no Funk Dancing. These two cards can't do an effect. Our best bet here is literally just a Yukari. Use Here's Our Chance. Knock out Violet and Yukari on this side of the field and deal the rest of the damage to. How much damage was it? 5, 17, 26, 33. Okay, we can knock out 3 cards then. So we can't knock out this because if it were trying to deal damage at the same time, then Violet's still on the field, so this card won't receive damage. But we could knock out. Obviously, we don't want to target this because it could just negate the attack if we try to remove the counter. So what? 11, 9, that's 20, 32. How much did we say this was dealing? I've already forgotten. 28, 29, 34, 33. Yeah, okay. So we can knock out Yuri, Violet, and Yukari. So remember, when a back row character is knocked out, the controller of that card does not draw. Does not draw a card. So our opponent here draws 1 card for the front row character being removed, but does not draw anything for either of the back row characters being removed. See, that attack was basically the end of the turn. So now, can we knock out everything on this field? We draw for turn. We get an Emmy. So this has what? Basically 20 health. Oh yeah, the force field, we can ignore that now because the card who used the force field is gone. We got Neku, who can deal a massive chunk of damage, so it could just come down to a dice roll, I suppose. We could risk it with a mad dummy knife, but that's probably not for the best. I would say our best bet here would be to use Quick Dash on Hatsuma. Yeah, I've remembered it. So we're going to use Quick Dash on Hatsuma, which won't deal any damage, but it will leave the bleed counter. So if this does come out to a stally game, the bleed counter is going to knock out this Hatsuma, right? We do still have another Blizzard as well. So we can freeze these characters again if we can't win this turn. Now, what we really want is a Scrap Dragon. So we're gonna do a risky play. We're going to play this Hanako in the front row. We're going to use her effect Chessmaster to reveal the top card of the deck and try and get a new character. We got the Doctor, which is actually not terrible in this situation. I know Doctor in the front row is not going to be great. We'd want him in the background normally, but for this scenario, this is actually pretty good. So we're going to use Alan Z on. Do we want to use it on? We could use it on Please Hit, I suppose, and hope for more damage. No, because we get 20, we can knock that out. Yeah, resolving this as a trigger is good, but the other characters can't attack still. So if we resolve that as a trigger, it's only going to be hitting for 17 because it's only adding 12, which is enough to knock out Hatsuma if we were going for him. It's not enough to knock out Mo. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to use Alonzi on Hatsuma for Cursed Blade. And we're going to hit Yukari for 12 as a trigger. So we knock that out. This player draws a card. Remember, it resolves the trigger, so our turn continues as normal. We still have our attacks. So we can now... Now, again, I could have Effect Veiler that. We're just going to pretend Effect Veiler isn't here for the rest of this game to make it end quicker. Because, sorry. So we could drop Fudd here, I suppose. We probably want to send Doctor offline because he's useless to us now. Fudd will hit for... Remember, we can only send a character offline if we're playing a character. We are playing a character here. Okay? Just I haven't done it yet. I'm just saying. I'm going to play Neku here. So we need to hit Mo for 20. Have we got 20 keywords? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wait, no. Curse doesn't know. Yes, it is. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Someone is not new. Someone is new. 16, 17, 18. Yeah, okay. We got more than 20 here. We can knock out Mo. And then here's our chance. Has enough damage to knock out Hatsuma. Since it does 17, we only need 16. So we're gonna have to basically risk it for that. So yeah, we'll use choose your, well, no, we won't use choose your pin. Let's say we use choose a pin and they drop Effect Veiler, but it doesn't really matter. So pin combo deals enough damage to knock out Mo. And then we have to roll some dice. So here's our chance. It's going to be hitting for 17. But because the armor counts you removed, he has to roll a d4. It results 4 or more. The attack is negated. Let's find out. The result was 1, because I'm rolling the dice. Therefore, this character is knocked out. We get our last prize card, and the game has been resolved. So, we have played for an entire game there. That is the general gist of how a game would go. Obviously, there aren't that many hand traps in the game, so remembering that you have cards in your hand you can activate in your opponent's turn isn't super important. The main ones are Dio and Effect Veiler. Yes, I did win. I beat the test dummy. Congratulations, me. They're the main ones, which are pretty decent cards, so you might well be running them, but that's just your prerogative to keep that in mind, For the most part, you can only play cards in your turn and not in your opponent's turn. We do occasionally have cards you can play in your opponent's turn, but all the cards that can be played then will specifically say on the card that they can, so there is not too much to have to keep in mind for that. I hope that everyone who watched that learned how to play the game now. Do you understand?